Out of all the films nominated this year, all the gritty, dark, and depressing stories we've had, the most celebrated is about Los Angeles. An LA story where two beautiful white people walk down the streets without a care in the world, have huge apartments, and financial success when following their dreams in the arts. You know, I've spent some time in LA. That's not quite how I remember it. Here's the thing, real students, this film, this La La Land, is not supposed to be the LA that we, the jaded generation, remember. It's supposed to be the LA that we forgot. I think La La Land, and all the attention it's already gotten, is probably going to be a very polarizing film, but only for people who really like musicals. True critics and connoisseurs will either love it or hate it. The reason some might hate it, other than not liking musicals, is actually liking musicals too much. As I mentioned before, critics and connoisseurs may not like La La Land because we've been spoiled over the last 2 decades. We've seen a resurgence in this genre, and then along comes La La Land, which isn't as polished as we're used to. Call me crazy, but I actually thought that was the point. People who criticize La La Land will of course bring up the singing and dancing as being unpolished. Gosling and Stone's performance, while realistic, was not the typical polished version of Hollywood movie musical magic that we're used to, especially Gosling's singing. I completely agree. It wasn't great. But again, that might be the point. I read a rather cynical article in Newsweek that said that La La Land is basically the musical that we deserve in the Trump era. We celebrate mediocrity. We raise Gosling and Stone's status to the point of great when really they're not so great. And Americans vote an orangutan's anus into the White House. Okay, so maybe the guy from Newsweek didn't actually use those specific words. But here's my argument. They could have found a young, talented, and handsome actor who could really sing. But they didn't. They could have auto-tuned the living crap out of Gosling's voice, but they didn't. Even Disney is seemingly guilty of auto-tuning if you've ever heard Emma Watson's voice in the trailer for Beauty and the Beast. But the fact is, La La Land didn't do that. What that does, in my opinion, is ground Gosling and Stone's performance even more. Now, their performances in terms of acting were already great. They have amazing chemistry, which they've developed over a couple of other films. But the fact is, within a musical, it usually seems too fantastical, but having somebody who's as unpolished as Gosling is, somebody who may not be the greatest dancer either, it just makes it more grounded and realistic. Listen to the guy who says orangutan's anus. I'm much smarter than my vocabulary would indicate. Gosling's character Sebastian is a jazz purist. He loves it. He breathes it. He bleeds it. And part of his journey over the entire film is accepting the fact that jazz is never really going to be the same. You can appreciate the classics, but sadly, that classic era is dead. What I felt is this is the subtext that La La Land is trying to show us. It pays homage to classics like Singing in the Rain, but we all know it's never going to be Singing in the Rain. It may try to remind us of the classic studio era or Hollywood glamour of the 1940s, but the fact is, even the filmmakers know it's never going to be like that again. And if you don't think that that's a very specific choice, then just keep watching because I'm gonna argue it again. To reiterate the point about casting whoever they wanted to earlier, you have to also consider the budget. It was $30 million, not a whole heck of a lot, and you know that most of that probably went to Gosling and Stone. But the fact of the matter is, even with that smaller budget, they could have made different choices. But throughout the film, I really felt that the production team was showing you the specific choices they wanted to make despite the budget. They could have edited the film using short, choppy edits. Instead, they chose impossibly choreographed long takes. They could have shot the film using very straightforward lighting, but instead chose very specific use of color, silhouette, and shadow. Seriously, you could teach a class about this film's use of light and color. Perhaps I will. What really drove the film for me, though, was the story, and that kind of gets lost in all the hype of the fact that this is a musical. Yes, it is a beautiful film to watch, but it is an overall fantastic cinematic experience. I truly connected with both of the main characters. In fact, some of their journey really hit home for me. Their passion for art, their belief in a specific type of art that they want to bring into this world, and the heartache when they can't bring it into this world. I don't really believe that Gosling will bring home the Oscar statuette, but I believe Stone has a very good chance. And I do have to say, being a guy who has seen hundreds, if not thousands of films, this ending was one of the more touching and beautiful conclusions I've ever seen. Some of the people I've discussed this film with have said that you could have had that great story without it being a musical, and while I don't completely disagree, some of the music, the songs, seemed like more of an afterthought. The fact is, it just simply wouldn't have been the same. It would have lost so much of its charm. In all of my Best Picture nominee reviews, I'm going to do something a little bit different. No earn it, no burn it, just 2 rankings out of 9. 9 Best Picture nominees. One ranking will be my personal preference. The other will be how likely it is to win the Best Picture statuette on Oscar night. Out of the 9 films nominated, this film hit all the right notes for me, pun intended. It is number 1. It tops my list in terms of personal preference. And for La La Land, it seems to be unstoppable. It is number 1, most likely to win. Seems like a no-brainer. If you have seen La La Land, of course, comment in the section below and let me know what you thought of it. Be sure to subscribe to Real School and ding that notification bell so you are aware of all of Real School's new content. You can also follow me on Twitter, and of course, if you get anything out of Real School, you can always give a little back. Just click the link and you can become a member of my Patreon team. But until next time, school's out. Hey Real students, I hope you enjoyed that review on one of the Best Picture nominated films this year. If you enjoyed that one, click the playlist so that you can see all 9 reviews I did on all 9 nominated films. As always, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to Real School. You can also click that notification bell, that damn bell, so that you are aware of all of Real School's content. You won't miss out on any of the Best Picture nominated reviews. You won't miss out on any of the new content that's coming up throughout the year. You can also follow me on Twitter, and you want to do that because live on Oscar night, Sunday, February 26th, I will be live tweeting. So join me for what I like to call intellect, wit, and a lot of sarcasm. And of course, if you get anything out of Real School, you can always give a little back. Just click the link above me or below in the description, and you can become part of my Patreon team.